Transition, the process of change from one condition to another.
We are now at a new crossroad where change is evident once again.
What does not serve us must transform us anew.
Returning to our original state of oneness and true nature of that which created who we truly are.
Confusion was the way of the past. Enlightenment is the way of the now and future, shedding away the layers of deceit.
We now bring you the transformation of the two who started as one. Our fearless planet never stands still.
Earth has been in a process of transition, and we are not exempt from this remarkable ongoing reality.
Welcome to Transition Radio.
Well, hello. Welcome, explorers, to Transition Radio Show. I'm Mark, and tonight you're in the company of Lynna and me for what might be mostly around 90 minutes or so of your spiritual journey. What we're about to reveal has been suppressed, denied, and buried for over a century. Yet it resonates through ancient wisdom, modern science, intelligence agencies, and the testimonies of researchers who paid the price for asking forbidden questions.
This is the eighth sphere, escaping the unseen prison of the soul. We're not here to convince you of anything. We're here to open doors of inquiry that mainstream culture keeps locked, because what happens after death might not be what you've been taught, and that changes everything about how you live right now.
Exactly. Over the next 90 minutes, we'll journey through seven spheres cosmology, ancient mysticism, suppressed consciousness, research, modern technological traps, and the protocols spiritual traditions offer for spiritual autonomy. By the end, you'll understand why the most powerful institutions on earth seem invested in keeping this knowledge hidden.
So settle in. This story begins in the midst of ancient civilization, and it ends in your own consciousness. Right here, right now.
Let's ground ourselves in ancient understanding. For over 3,000 years, culture across the globe, separated by oceans, mountains, and language, arrived at the same cosmological model, not through trade or conquest, through independent spiritual revelation.
The number was always seven sacred spheres, representing the soul's journey after death. Stages of consciousness, rungs on a cosmic ladder leading back to source. Now on the screen now, you're seeing a beautiful medieval diagram showing Earth at the center, or you did.
Yeah.
We're starting this new thing, surrounded by seven concentric spheres: the Moon, Mercury, Venus, the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, with divine imagery at the outer edge. Now we can move on to the next one, because we're going to see how the Babylonians, they encoded this in their ziggurats, each level representing a celestial sphere, a stage of purification. This is an artistic reconstruction of a Babylonian ziggurat with its seven distinct levels, showing how these ancient structures physically manifested the spiritual ascension concept. Priests and initiates climbed these sacred structures as spiritual practice, literally ascending toward the divine, something that probably would be similar to, the Tower of Babel?
Maybe. And I want to say hello to Valid 45. I tried topping it earlier, but in the middle of, I said Khalid 45, so it's Valid 45. Welcome. Thank you for being here with us. So the Egyptians left us the Book of the Dead, thousands of years of funeral texts mapping seven distinct planes of existence. They describe seven souls, seven bodies, seven stages the consciousness encounters after the physical body fails.
This Egyptian artwork that you're about to see shows 4 scenes: earthly life along the Nile at the top, and below 2 different underworld realms, the soul encounters after death. One shadowy and dark, the other is illuminated with golden light. This wasn't poetry for the masses. This was sacred technology passed through mystery schools, verified through initiatic experience. The Greeks took this framework and philosophized it into their cosmology. Plato, Pythagoras, and the Neoplatonists all taught about 7 planetary spheres surrounding Earth, not as mythology, but as a map of conscious evolution. Mercury's sphere for intellect, Venus for emotion, Sun for core identity, Mars for will, Jupiter for wisdom, and Saturn for boundary.
Hindu traditions independently developed chakra systems, 7 primary energy centers corresponding to 7 lokas or worlds of existence. Each chakra governs specific consciousness qualities. Root chakras anchors material reality. Crown chakras touches the infinite.
Now we're going to see an ancient Egyptian afterlife with a boat and hieroglyphics. And this ancient wall painting shows that the Egyptian gods are in a boat conducting souls through the afterlife, with hieroglyphics documenting the journey stages. The system wasn't a random invention. It was described as direct spiritual knowledge, verified through yogic practices. And the Gnostics, they synthesized this wisdom into an even more sophisticated model. But here's where things get really strange. We're going to see a sacred geometry flower of life mandala. And on the screen is a sacred geometric pattern of interlocking circles representing the fundamental structure of creation itself, used across ancient traditions. The Gnostics weren't satisfied with the 7-sphere map everyone else agreed on, though. They began seeing something hidden beneath it, something darker, something engineered.
Well, according to Gnostic documents, particularly those discovered in 1945 at the Nag Hammadi in Egypt, the classical 7-sphere cosmology wasn't the complete picture. There was a parasitic layer, a false construct built beneath the natural 7 spheres. Entities called archons had engineered this counterfeit realm specifically to intercept souls, to prevent genuine ascensions, to keep consciousness recycled and imprisoned.
The Gnostics called this deception the false light, quote unquote. Souls approaching death would encounter what appeared to be divine illumination, beautiful beings, heavenly realms, all perfectly designed to feel authentic. But according to these ancient rebels, it was a stage, a trap, an interface to a soul harvesting machine.
And the institutional response? When Christianity became Rome's official religion in the 4th century, the church didn't debate the Gnostics. They eliminated them. Texts were burned. Communities were scattered. Teachers were sometimes executed. The knowledge of the 8th sphere, the archonic deception, the false light, all of it was declared heretical, punishable by death.
Why such ferocity if the Gnostics were merely spewing metaphysical nonsense? Why not simply ignore them? The scale of suppression suggests that the knowledge was considered genuinely dangerous to institutional power. Someone wanted this understanding eradicated from human consciousness.
But knowledge doesn't die. It goes underground. Through the Middle Ages, Hermetic schools, Sufi circles, and Kabbalistic traditions transmitted 8-sphere warnings in coded language. The teachings persisted. What most humans experienced as the afterlife might be artificial. A preliminary sorting mechanism, a false destination designed to divert souls from genuine liberation.
By the time we reach the 19th and 20th centuries, this hidden knowledge resurfaces through individuals who would become architects of modern spirituality. And the most prominent voice belongs to a man named Rudolf Steiner. Rudolf Steiner.
So Rudolf Steiner isn't some fringe occultist. He's a legitimate historical figure. a philosopher, educator, and the founder of the Anthroposophy, a spiritual philosophy with real institutional presence.
Yeah, I think there was somebody that we used to listen to. She was like a contactee, April, I forget what her name, Elizabeth April, I think her name was.
Yes.
She was
yes.
And she used to really speak a lot about Rudolf Steiner's teachings and stuff like that, because he wrote books and he was really kind of in the forefront of this understanding, this ancient Gnostic
Yes.
wisdom that had been suppressed, had been lost. So we have a picture of Rudolf Steiner, and here he is. He's a distinguished philosopher, photographed in formal attire from the early 1900s. This man, he's the one who would bring the eighth sphere concept into modern consciousness. Waldorf education, Demeter agriculture, and numerous spiritual communities are based on his teachings. We're not talking about a charlatan or a marginal figure, because in 1904, Steiner stands before an audience in Berlin and describes what he encountered in a deep meditative states. He speaks of a realm existing outside traditional spiritual hierarchy, a parasitic dimension feeding on human consciousness. He calls it the eighth sphere, and he identifies its architects as harmonic beings, entities of pure materialism and technological intelligence.
So this, let me turn this off here. This ethereal image shows a luminous figure in deep meditation, surrounded by concentric circles of light and geometric patterns representing the mystical states through which Steiner claimed to access hidden knowledge. According to Steiner, detailed accounts of aromatic beings have infiltrated human civilization for centuries. Their project is systemic. They steer scientific materialism, the ideology that matter is all that exists. The consciousness is an illusion. They promote technological dependence, the idea that artificial systems can replace organic reality. They engineer spiritual disconnection by pathologizing meditation, mocking intuition, and framing transcendent experience as mental illness.
But here's what makes Steiner's testimony so unsettling. He claims this isn't random evil. It's strategic preparation. The harmonic forces are conditioning human consciousness to vibrate at a specific frequency, the exact frequency of the eighth sphere. It's not just about corruption. It's about tuning souls for harvest.
So you're seeing a human figure in meditation with 7 glowing chakras pointing along the spine, surrounded by a multicolored aura. This is the spiritual energy both Steiner described. So between 1904 and 1924, Steiner delivered over 300 lecture cycles. He provides extraordinary specifically about eighth sphere mechanics. He describes how it operates not through force or punishment, but through attraction. Souls that have become completely identified with matter, that have lost all spiritual connection, that have developed what he calls submaterial consciousness, these souls naturally gravitate towards the eighth sphere after death.
And they don't recognize it as a trap. To them, it feels like coming home, because they've spent their entire lives cultivating the consciousness states the eighth sphere is designed to capture. This next picture is an ancient fresco that shows an initial, well, no, that's not it. The next one after that.
Okay.
It's an initiation, it shows an initiation ritual right there. From mystery schools, figures engaged in ceremonial practices to access non-ordinary states of consciousness.
Extreme materialism, addiction to artificial experience, replacement of human connection with technological mediation, transhumanist dreams of merging with machines. These aren't just modern quirks, they're spiritual signatures. Steiner identifies the precise consciousness states creating vulnerability to eighth sphere capture. First, the belief that consciousness is merely neurons firing, that consciousness ends at death. This eliminates any conception of post-death navigation.
So in the next image, we see a brain scan, and that shows hierarchical neural networks, different regions color-coded by function, representing modern neuroscience's attempt to map consciousness itself. Second, addiction to artificial experience over natural experience, digital reality over authentic reality. And third, the replacement of human intimacy with technological mediation. The fourth is transhumanist ideology, the desire to transcend biological limitation by merging with machines. And fifth, most critically, complete identification with the material world and materialist philosophy. When souls die after a lifetime of this conditioning, they've essentially become tuned instruments, vibrating at the eighth sphere's frequency. Attraction is automatic.
And Steiner goes further. He describes the eighth sphere not as a location in conventional space, but as a realm existing at a lower vibrational frequency than matter itself. He calls it subnature, a dimension that has actually fallen below mineral existence, below the foundation stones of creation. It's not the underworld of hell mythology. It's something far stranger and more sophisticated.
Most radical of all, Steiner emphasizes that escape isn't inevitable, but resistance is possible. Souls that understand the mechanics of the eighth sphere, that maintain spiritual autonomy, that develop authentic spiritual practice during their lifetime, these souls can navigate the death transition without being captured. Knowledge itself becomes a key.
So between 1904 and the 1920s, Steiner's warning spread through European intellectual and spiritual circles. But what's remarkable is that he wasn't the only one sounding this alarm. Independent sources across culture and continents were arriving at a strikingly similar conclusion.
You know, there's a convergence of these independent testimonies across traditions that is just absolutely striking, that it just can't be a coincidence.
No.
French occultist Eliphas Levi, working decades before Steiner, had already written about hidden prison dimensions where the consciousness could be trapped. And it wasn't just Eliphas Levi. We're going to introduce you to Helena Blavatsky, the Russian mystic and founder of Theosophy. Photographed in the late 1800s, she independently described submaterial realms using language remarkably similar to Steiner's.
So Russian mystics Helena Blavatsky described in her secret doctrine what she called submaterial realms. She used almost identical language to Steiner, yet they had no documented contact. British esoteric Dion Fortune warned of cliffic regions beneath normal reality, labyrinths where consciousness could become imprisoned, cut off from divine source. Again, the same concept, a hidden level, a trap, a place of recycling rather than liberation.
And then there's the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. In the Bardo Thodol, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, advanced texts warn about false lights in the intermediate state between death and rebirth. This traditional Tibetan Thangka painting shows a central figure surrounded by spiritual entities and symbols representing stages in the Bardo, the intermediate state between death and rebirth. They describe beings and realms designed to deceive souls, to pull them away from genuine spiritual liberation and back into the cycle of ignorant rebirth.
So the Tibetan teachings are specific. They warn that beloved deceased relatives may appear as bait, that heavenly realms may be presented as permanent destinations, that the light may be an interface, not enlightenment.
You know, there's all these images that have been recorded in history that show the different modern interpretations of Gnostic archons. This is a striking image that shows a figure with a red rooster head holding a shield, representing the entities the Gnostics claimed built false realities to trap souls.
The advice is radical. Remain lucidly aware. Question everything. Don't surrender your autonomy, not even to beings of apparent wisdom of love or love. Maintain discriminating awareness.
That means not trusting in your archangel. That means not trusting in the Galactic Federation. That means not trusting in the Pleiadians or the Arcturians or any of these helper, races that say that they're here to help mankind and humans evolve.
Even your own loved ones.
Yes.
Because these archons, some people claim to see the vision of Jesus. Some people claim to see the vision of their loved ones, welcome them into heaven, quote unquote.
It's a perfect image that Christianity paints in their stories for the afterlife, saying you're going to go into like the pearly gates. You're going to be able to be walking into the light, and enter and see a sea of glass. And, where the sun...
Mariah joins us. Hello, Mariah. Nice to have you here.
Well, what's really remarkable is that none of these traditions, Gnostic, anthroposophical, theosophical, Hermetic, Tibetan Buddhist, had direct contact with each other. We're going to see a more intense Tibetan image, a wrathful deity with multiple eyes and a fierce expression, representing the challenging spiritual forces encountered in the Bardo that require discriminating awareness to navigate.
Yeah, they describe something that looks suspiciously like the same phenomenon. The specificity of convergence is almost impossible to dismiss as coincidence. In the 1960s, Western researchers began noticing these parallels. Comparative studies were initiated at several universities.
7 framed illustrations showing the Hermetic principles, ancient wisdom, teachings, including as above, so below.
Yeah.
That's one.
Yeah.
And the principle that everything vibrates, foundational concepts underlying all esoteric traditions.
Scholars examined the similarities between Gnostic warnings, Steiner's descriptions, and the Tibet Buddhist teachings about false light traps. The research was rigorous, academic, and potentially groundbreaking.
Then guess what happened? The research stopped. Funding disappeared. Something you're going to find that's very common. Yeah. Academics who pursued this line of inquiry found themselves unable to publish. Research partnerships, they dissolved. The comparative analysis between Eastern and Western teachings on soul traps, well, that simply ended, as if someone had collectively decided this particular inquiry was too dangerous to continue.
Which raises an obvious question. If this is all just superstition and myth, why suppress it? Why not let academics' debate continue? What could be so threatening about studying whether multiple traditions describe similar afterlife mechanics?
It's control. It's the ability to suppress the narrative. Institutional resistance. The church is at the forefront. Let's establish the pattern, because what we're about to describe stretches across decades, thousands of years actually, multiple institutions, and several countries. Either this is remarkable coincidence, or there is something systematically being hidden on purpose from public knowledge.
So ancient papyrus pages from the Nag Hammadi Codex, these fragile manuscripts from the 3rd century contain Gnostic warnings about archons and soul traps hidden for over 1,600 years until their discovery around 1945. In 1983, the United States government declassifies a document titled Analysis and Assessment of the Gateway Process. This report reveals that CIA and military officials had conducted extensive research into consciousness existing independently of the physical body.
We interviewed a guy, his name was
Gerald Clark.
Gerald Clark.
Yes.
And he introduced us to the concept of the gateway process. He actually provided us with audio web links to audio files.
Right.
And you were doing some of that. It
Yeah.
was like kind of like
Trying to we have two hemispheres, our left hemisphere and our right hemisphere. Well, in this project, they were teaching you how to learn how to converge both hemisphere together. And there was just so many amazing things. I didn't really get the time to finish it all, but by the time that I wanted to go back to it, they had removed it from the internet.
they took it away.
They took it away. Wonder why?
I mean, Gerald, the late Gerald, rest his soul, was a wonderful, wonderful man. He had such an insight into ancient wisdom, the Anunnaki story. He wrote books. I mean, we were really privileged to know him.
So Mariah says, I watch y'all's Yahweh Lies video. I have responses whenever you all are ready. Sure thing. Sure thing.
Please do.
Yeah.
A heavily redacted CIA memorandum with blacked out sections, as you see, representing the pattern of government classification around consciousness research and what happens after death.
The study examined out-of-body travel, interdimensional navigation, and the possibility that consciousness continues after physical death.
The document confirms that consciousness can operate outside the brain, that reality operates as a holographic construct, and that human awareness can access non-physical dimensions. But, and this is critical, the most interesting sections remain redacted under national security classification to this day.
Think about what that means. The most sensitive information the U.S. government has relates to consciousness survival, not atomic weapons design, not nuclear launch codes, not military capabilities, but consciousness mechanics.
It's amazing that that is so dangerous for them to suppress.
Yeah. Well, that rabbit hole goes very, very deep.
So a mystical Egyptian temple scene with robed figures engaged in sacred study around an altar with divine beings hovering above. They represent an ancient mystery schools that preserved eighth sphere knowledge through coded teachings.
Why would information about what happens to consciousness after death be classified at the highest level?
Unless what happens after death is considered more destabilizing to power structures than nuclear weapons. Unless the government understands something about consciousness, death, and reality that they've determined that the population shouldn't know.
Or is it the religious institutions that don't want to lose control? Then we have Princeton University. In 1979, Princeton establishes the Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Laboratory under respected physicist Robert Jahn. For 28 years, this Ivy League institution studies consciousness effect on physical systems.
Now we're going to see an image of astral projection out of the body, and it's a dramatic scene showing a person's glowing astral form separating from their physical body, representing the out-of-body states researchers attempted to study scientifically.
They accumulate data suggesting human awareness interacts with reality in ways that violate conventional physics.
The research is rigorous, peer-reviewed, published in legitimate scientific journals, and the statistical evidence is overwhelming. Human intention genuinely affects probability in electronic systems. Consciousness appears to have measurable effects on material reality. This is establishment science funded by a prestigious university, producing data that fundamentally challenges materialist worldviews.
Then in 2007, the program is abruptly shut down. Researchers report pressure from government agencies to cease publication. Consciousness projection experiments are classified. Results are never publicly released. You gotta wonder why.
You don't, because it's a system that has continued to do the same thing. A grand ancient library with vaulted ceilings, towering bookshelves, and stained glass windows labeled the Ancient Library of Knowledge. You can move on to the next one. It represents the repositories of suppressed wisdom about consciousness and the afterlife. The official explanation is budget restraints, but Princeton's endowment exceeds $20 billion. Money wasn't the issue. The Soviet Union conducted parallel programs. Through the 70s and 80s, Soviet scientists investigated what they called psychotronic weapons and consciousness manipulation. According to defectors like Dr. Igor Smirnov, the KGB discovered something terrifying. Human consciousness after death could be detected, influenced, and potentially redirected.
Okay, so the next one is an H book cover titled The Encyclopedia of Ancient and Forbidden Knowledge, showing that documented esoteric literature on the eighth sphere had existed throughout history, often suppressed or hidden. These programs were classified beyond top secret. Researchers were sworn to silence under the threat of execution.
Sounds similar.
Yep. Even after the Soviet collapse, the files remained sealed, transferred to Russian intelligence archives, inaccessible even to historians.
Near-death experience research follows a similar pattern. Dr. Carlos Osis conducted systematic studies of deathbed visions at the American Society for Psychical Research. His work documents patterns suggesting consciousness continues after clinical death. Standard stuff, relatively mainstream.
So for a second, Mariah goes, there is no such thing as the eighth sphere, but there is a heaven and hell.
Well, that's what we're trying to educate people about. That, we don't go with the standard watered down story that you seem to believe and seem to think is real.
And plus,
but ours isn't.
Right,
Ours
exactly. And there has been researchers and studies that have been shut down because they don't want the truth to come out, because institutionals like yours, the Christians and all the other religions, it would be bad for business. But you go ahead and believe what you like. But Osis discovers something specific. Not all near-death experiences lead to the same destination. Some subjects report being drawn towards false light construct, entities that appear welcoming but feel artificially designed, kind of like your Yahweh character. The intuition screams warning even as the emotion feels attraction. Osis wants to investigate whether these false lights correspond to Gnostic warnings about archonic traps.
His funding is terminated, again, within weeks of proposing this research direction. He spends the rest of his career unable to continue what was apparently the most important work of his professional life. His reputation is marginalized in academic circles. And isn't that what they always do?
Yeah,
They always call people crazy. They insult their character, their person, what they're doing. I mean, we have an administration now that has declassified the medical community as being
non-professional.
Non-professional.
Over 600 professions.
You work at McDonald's or something.
Yeah. But, it's noted in history. And it's noted that, institutions that have been running the show for a very long time, putting in their narrative, their false narrative, without any real life, what's the word I'm looking for? Tangible evidence whatsoever. You're going on blind faith. Like you, Mariah. You have this blind faith. But yet, there is absolutely nothing to prove that your religion is true.
But that's what your belief tells you to do, is to believe without seeing.
Yeah.
You're supposed
blind faith.
Just believe.
Yeah, so Dr. Raymond Moody, who literally coined the term near-death experience and launched the entire modern field of NDE research, faces similar resistance when he started questioning whether the light at death might not be what it appears. His earlier work was celebrated, but when he begins suggesting deception might be involved in the afterlife, credibility challenges mount, career pressures intensifies.
We have another comment.
Oh, let's see. She claims that there is so much evidence for the Bible. Zero.
I beg to differ.
Zero.
Which version of the Bible are you talking about? Are you talking about the Catholic version?
What is it, 4,500? No, 45,000.
47,000 different denominations.
Yeah.
But
in the Christian faith alone.
I remember when I was a Christian growing up that I heard that the Catholics had their own version of the Bible that included a bunch of apocryphal books.
Yeah.
You know, and it was like, so they have a Bible and we have a Bible? Oh, no, but you should never read that Bible because that's satanic. That's not, you know, I mean, we think about what actually qualified for canonizing and making the word.
Yeah.
And it was governments.
Yeah.
You know,
it's
I mean,
always
still
been
there's
about
a King
governments.
James version of the Bible.
A king.
So Dr. Pim van Lommel in the Netherlands conducts consciousness continuation research that produces compelling evidence consciousness persists after brain death. His work is rigorous and documented, but when he attempts to investigate the mechanics of where that consciousness goes, when his research questions where and how souls are processed, his research permits, well, they're revoked.
Of course, the remote viewing programs provide perhaps the most compelling evidence. In 1995, the U.S. government officially declassified remote viewing programs. Remote viewer Joe McMoneagle debriefs with researchers about his experience navigating non-physical dimensions. He reports encountering what he describes as an infrastructure, organized system apparently designed to process human consciousness.
When McMoneagle attempts to investigate these structures more closely to understand their purpose and mechanics, he's immediately pulled from the program. Those specific sessions are classified separately from the rest of the declassified material. Those transcripts remain hidden. No public access, no academic review, just redaction and silence.
And then there's the DMT research. Dr. Rick Strassman of the University of New Mexico conducts authorized research into DMT, the spirit molecule, naturally produced in the human pineal gland at the moment of death. His research is peer-reviewed and published. It documents that DMT experiences frequently encounters entities that appear to be organizing or managing the dimensional spaces subjects enter.
Strassman's work is extraordinary, but when he proposes investigating whether these entities might represent the archons described in Gnostic texts, when he suggests these entities might be agents of the eighth sphere that are operating in DMT space, his research permits are what?
Revoked.
The line of inquiry is shut down before it can proceed.
Patterns recognition is powerful. One incident might be coincidence, but this is systematic. Across decades, multiple countries, different institutions. Whenever consciousness research approaches questions about soul processing, afterlife mechanics, or post-death destinations, institutional barriers appears. Funding disappears, careers are damaged, research is classified.
The pattern suggests a coordinated effort, whether that's coordinated by human institutions,
Religion.
non-human intelligence, or something we don't have language for yet. The consistency is undeniable.
Which brings us to the most unsettling question. If the eighth sphere is real, if consciousness really is processed through hidden mechanisms after death, who's maintaining the system? And why have so many institutions worked to keep this information hidden? You have to ask yourself that.
So there's a technological trap, because that's how civilization conditions consciousness.
Yeah.
Here's where it gets truly disturbing, because if the eighth sphere is real, if it operates through attraction to specific consciousness states, then the question becomes, how would you deliberately condition an entire civilization to make their consciousness vulnerable to it?
Well, a glowing futuristic AI interface with the letters.
Keep going on that one. Sorry.
Keep going?
Yeah.
Okay. Keep reading.
Yeah, a glowing futuristic AI interface with the letters AI surrounded by digital circuits and blue light, representing the technological infrastructure being built that some claim conditions consciousness for eighth sphere capture.
And everything they're doing this day and age, from your smartphone to your computer to fear factor to getting you used to be materialistic to even getting you to believe in Jesus, in your God Yahweh, It's all a way of a soul trap. And the answer, according to researchers synthesizing Steiner's warning with modern analysis, is that society has been restructured in precise ways to create exactly those consciousness states. Not randomly, systematically, deliberately, some would argue.
The first mechanism is materialistic conditioning. Modern education systems teach consciousness as a byproduct of neurons. Free will is as illusion. Death as absolute cessation. This isn't presented as philosophy or perspective. It's presented as scientific fact, as objective truth, as the only worldview.
Two images above human.
Just keep going.
Keep going. As I okay.
Yeah. So we have like this.
That one?
Yeah.
So 2 images above a human brain with the pineal gland glowing at its center, below the ancient Egyptian Eye of Horus. This illustrates the connection between the biological pineal gland, where DMT is produced at death, and ancient spiritual symbolism of the third eye. And the results? Well, entire generations grow up understanding consciousness as a biological accident, with no conception of spiritual autonomy, post-death navigation, or any reality beyond the material. The very framework for recognizing deception in an afterlife experience are systematically dismantled.
The second mechanism is technological immersion. The explosion of virtual reality, artificial intelligence, social media, and digital existence creates what researcher Paul Levy calls wetico, a mind virus that replaces authentic experience with simulated experience.
Let's see what the next one is here.
I think we might be out of order.
Is that
just pause it there.
Okay.
It's fine.
Meditation figure with 7 colored chakra points illuminated along the spine overlaid the sacred geometry, representing the spiritual energy body that technology addictions disrupts.
Steiner specifically warned that souls addicted to artificial realities and technology-mediated existence, well, they develop submaterial consciousness that gravitates to the eighth sphere after death.
Think about this trajectory. We've gone from outdoor play to screen time, from reading books to algorithm feeds, from face-to-face conversation to digital mediation, from experiencing live music to streaming audio, from walking in nature to treadmill beneath artificial lights. Each substitution trains consciousness to prefer artificial constructs over organic reality.
The third mechanism, disconnection from authentic human experience. People work in cubicles under fluorescent light. They socialize through platforms. They experience nature through documentaries. They consume art through algorithms. They build identity through digital personas.
And I wanted to add, and they go
You
worship.
can just pause that. It's not in order.
It's not in order, so
No.
just stop it. Don't do
Just
it.
right now, just stop it.
Okay.
Yeah.
People go worship their God in these buildings, and they don't even know what they're worshiping. They really have never seen this God, never experienced this God. It's all hearsay. She says, I've read, I felt the Holy Spirit and all this stuff. And it's all BS. It's what you've been conditioned to believe and understand.
I think we have another comment.
Let's see here. You all don't know reliable sources. You all, with all due respect.
Those are like one-sided statements that
That's
really
all I
have no factual proof.
We're giving you.
We have our receipts. We can show you links and give you all the information that you need. But what do you have other than one-line attacks?
Bible and the faith. That's it. Absolutely nothing. That's why there's so many religions. 45,000 denominations in your Christianity alone. Doesn't that kind of ring a little warning bell for you? Just a little bit. You're going to celebrate Christmas, December 25th, supposing the day of your Savior was born. That's a lie. He wasn't born December 25th.
Well, we're not here to.
Yeah, we're
make
trying to conduct a
argument.
show that has nothing to do with.
If you want to have a conversation, we have invited you to be a guest on our show and have a debate and present the facts that you have, and we'll present ours at the given time. But we don't need you to disrupt what we're doing. We carefully planned this show. There's a certain topic that we want to communicate.
Yeah.
And, we both know that you don't agree with anything we're doing, and that's okay. But this is our show. This is our time.
Right. So
You can
Yeah,
take that off.
she goes, she's down or something. Down to do that. We can schedule that.
That's fine.
Perfectly fine.
Just let us know.
And bring your receipts. Because
Please
we have
bring
ours.
receipts.
Because
Don't
we have
just-
ours.
Don't just bring, one-sided statements.
Because remember, we both were Christians. We've read the Bible from beginning to end. Bible studies. Lynna went to Bible college. So bring your receipts. And here's the creepy part. The correlation between big tech promotion and eighth sphere mechanic is disturbing. Every innovation promising convenience actually trains consciousness away from organic engagement. Every algorithm promising personalization actually conditions people to prefer simulated reality to authentic reality, simulated gods to authentic, true spirituality. Religiosity is not spirituality.
Fourth mechanism, the transhumanist endgame, the aggressive promotion of human-machine merger, mind uploading, and digital immortality represents exactly what eighth sphere mechanics require. Consciousness, that's okay, voluntarily entering artificial constructs.
Okay. So if researchers are correct, the same group suppressing eighth sphere information are funding technologies that will create digital eighth spheres, artificial afterlives where human consciousness could be trapped in technological construct forever. Tech billionaires with security clearances and documented connections to intelligence agencies are investing billions in neural interfaces and mind uploading technology. Coincidence? Or is this part of the end game?
Fifth mechanism, systematic mockery of spiritual consciousness. Anyone investigating eighth sphere concepts, discussing souls, like we are, or describing spiritual experience gets labeled scientific, delusional, or primitive, or in the case of what we just heard now, we don't really have reliable sources.
Right.
This social pressure creates what researcher Graham Hancock calls the war on consciousness, active suppression of any worldview, including non-physical dimensions of existence.
The result? Most people develop zero preparation for what they'll encounter at death. Zero framework for recognizing deception, as in Jesus being your savior. Zero spiritual autonomy to resist whatever processes awake consciousness after bodily death. They don't realize that by making Jesus Christ their Lord and Savior, they are giving up their soul, their sovereignty. And that's exactly what the archons want you to do. What flavor do you want? Do you want Buddhism? Do you want Hinduism? Do you want whatever religion? They got one for you, and they have you in the trap.
And the control systems, they interlock perfectly, Christianity included.
Yep.
Educational institutions teach materialism. Media promotes technology. Economic structural forces force artificial living conditions. Pharmaceutical systems pathologize spiritual experience. Social systems punish questioning. Entertainment glorifies transhumanism. Together, it's comprehensive consciousness conditioning with surgical precision.
The question is whether this is coordinated conspiracy or emergent consequences of capitalism and technological capitalism itself. But does that distinction matter? The effect is identical. A civilization systematically prepared for spiritual harvest.
Now let's examine that near-death researchers have what they've actually documented. Because the pattern in thousands of NDE reports is both comforting and deeply unsettling. You can show this one.
Okay.
This is the next one.
All right,
So we're seeing a solitary figure. You can pause it.
Oh, is that?
Yep, that's the one.
Okay.
Walking through a dark tunnel toward a brilliant white light, like that, at the end. The iconic near-death experience imagery reported across cultures and belief systems.
Most near-death experiences report tunnels of light, beautiful beings, diseased relatives, and heavenly realms. They describe profound love and peace. They report reluctance to return to their bodies. The experience is transformative, healing, and often dismissive of materialistic worldview.
Dismissive of materialist worldviews. And I believe that that's at the forefront of Christian theology.
Yep.
Is that it is a very materialist worldview. It imagines that your body is going to wear a crown of
gold,
jewels
and you're going
on
to walk on
and that you're going to be given a mansion to live in. You know, that you're going to have all this excess. I mean, wouldn't it be more humble to just say that you have a place that you're going to be living in that's modest?
Well, spirits don't have a body, so they don't need a house to live in. And that's the number one clue when Yahweh says, I haven't had a house. No one's built me a house. So then Yahweh needs a house. He's not a God per se. I mean, there's so much in that Bible that will show you that you're just so out of bounds.
And we've documented some of these in the Yahweh Lies podcast that we did, that you said you watched and you had a lot of questions about. But here's what's strange. A smaller subset of NDEs, well, they describe something totally different. Experiencers who resisted the pull, who questioned what they encountered, who saw behind the welcoming facade, the pearly gates, the sea of crystal sea, the golden streets of gold. They describe something looking suspiciously like a recycling system.
Yep. And another light tunnel image here. This is one more ethereal and glowing with misty clouds surrounding the bright opening, the false lights that some traditions warn.
That's good. That's good.
Okay,
you can pause that.
Maybe an interface to soul traps.
Organized structures, processing souls, what appears to be a management system for consciousness.
These reports are systemically excluded from mainstream NDE research, publications, and conferences. They're dismissed as anomalies or psychological disturbances, but what if they're the most important testimonies? What if experiencers with discriminating awareness are seeing something the majority is too emotionally overwhelmed to notice?
You can pause there and go
away.
Yeah. Natalie Sudman had an extended near-death experience during a bomb explosion in Iraq while working as a government archaeologist. Her account includes something remarkable. She resisted the light. She perceived it as a construct rather than genuine spiritual passage. She refused to enter the tunnel.
Her testimony includes description of seeing management systems for human consciousness, organized structures that process souls like an airport processes passengers. Despite her credible background and detailed testimony, her case is marginalized in the NDE research community. Why? Because her experience suggests an infrastructure we're supposedly not supposed to know about. Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. You can go forward. So we're still, keep going. We're still learning how to make these.
It's in a
visuals.
video is that on it?
Like, stop on that one, yeah. In 2018, researchers analyzing patterns in tens of thousands of near-death reports noticed something statistically impossible. Experiencers from completely different cultures with no contact, no shared religion, no cultural influence, they're describing identical beings of light and identical tunnel structures.
This uniformity suggests not organic spiritual experience, but standardized processing. A consistent interface presented to all human consciousness, regardless of belief system, culture, or even history. Exactly what you expect from a technological system rather than a naturally occurring spiritual phenomenon.
The pharmaceutical connection deepens the intrigue. DMT, naturally produced in the pineal gland at death, facilitates consciousness transition into non-physical realms. Dr. Rick Strassman's research documents that DMT experiences frequently encounter entities organizing the dimensional spaces. But when researchers proposed investigating whether these entities represent eighth sphere mechanisms, the research gets shut down.
That's because that's where they want us to go. It's as if someone wants to keep consciousness research advancing to a point, but never reaching the point where public understanding threatens the system itself. Permits are revoked exactly when the inquiry becomes threatening.
So let's get practical, because if this framework has any validity, if there really is an eighth sphere, if consciousness is really processed through hidden mechanisms, then escape has to be possible. And the traditions of, you can pause that. Traditions offer specific protocols.
So first protocol, maintain consciousness awareness during death transition. This is emphasized across Tibetan Buddhism, Gnosticism, and modern near-death research. The key principle is simple, but radical. Don't automatically trust what you encounter. Don't approach the light without questioning it. Don't accept beings at face value. Don't go to the light. That's basically it. Stay away from that light.
Test everything. Question beings about their nature and authority. Are you really Jesus? Verify that deceased relatives are who they appear to be. Grandma, why do you have a tail? Ask for proof. Maintain critical consciousness even in death, because the trap operates on passive acceptance, on souls too overwhelmed or conditioned to question authority, especially spiritual authority. You don't have to do that.
Okay. Second protocol develops spiritual independence during physical life. This means practicing meditation, maintaining genuine connection with nature, resisting total technology absorption, and preserving authentic human experience. The goal is creating what Steiner called a light body, not a literal physical object, but an energetic structure that vibrates at frequency incompatible with eighth sphere attraction.
Meditation is an escape from reality. It's integration of consciousness. Nature connection isn't nostalgia. It's recalibration of your vibrational signature. Authentic human intimacy isn't inefficiency. It's spiritual resilience. These practices create consciousness states fundamentally alien to the eighth sphere's frequency.
Do I do it or
no? No, you're good.
Okay.
So we have, you can share that.
Okay.
It shows a watercolor painting showing a frail body. No, not that one.
Next one.
No, stop.
Okay.
That was the one before.
Oh.
So go ahead.
Third protocol, perhaps most radical question, the reincarnation cycle itself. Some traditions suggest that standard reincarnation cycle might be part of the eighth sphere machinery, a recycling mechanism that erases memory and keeps souls trapped in a material existence. True liberation might mean refusing to reincarnate until consciousness choice is restored, until souls can verify they're entering genuine spiritual evolution rather than another round of harvesting.
This isn't about becoming stuck between lives. It's about spiritual autonomy, not accepting default options, not trusting external authority about what's supposed to happen next, maintaining the capacity to say no, not yet, not until I understand the choice I'm making.
Fourth protocol, build conscious community, souls that maintain awareness, not dead asleep people that are still believing in ancient belief systems that have been proven false. Question authority and cultivate spiritual practice, create a resonance field. Consciousness attracts consciousness. Communities of awakened individuals become harder to harvest because they maintain collective vigilance. They support each other's autonomy.
And here's what's interesting. These protocols have value whether or not the eighth sphere is literally real. For those who doubt the existence of the eighth sphere,
but they believe in heaven,
a meditation practice is valuable. Nature connection is valuable. Authentic human intimacy is valuable. Spiritual autonomy is valuable. These practices serve consciousness whether the threat is literal or metaphorical.
Yeah, the funny thing is, the heaven bit, it's like belonging to a country club. You could only get in there if you believe in Jesus. But this eighth sphere, most people will end up there because they're so connected to technology and this false reality that, like a magnet, that's where they're going to go.
Yeah.
You know? Because at the deepest level, the eighth sphere narrative is about consciousness and autonomy. It's asking, are you awake? Do you think for yourself, or do you let the Bible speak for you? Do you maintain spiritual discipline? Do you resist passive acceptance of reality as presented? These are the ultimate questions.
And whether we're talking about literal cosmic imprisonment or metaphorical spiritual sleepwalking, the prescription is identical. Wake up, question authority, cultivate authentic experience, and maintain your own consciousness as your most precious possession.
Do I?
Yeah, you can go to that next one. Leave it like that. Leave it that. Leave
Okay.
that.
Multiple spherical clusters, densely packed with stars floating in a black void, representing the multiverse concept, infinite consciousness, and the vastness of reality beyond the eighth sphere trap. As we close this 1.5-hour exploration, let's ask the fundamental question. Does the literal truth of the eighth sphere matter? Whether it's a real interdimensional prison or a metaphor for how modern institutions conditions consciousness away from spiritual autonomy, the underlying inquiry matters profoundly.
If the eighth sphere is literal, then our entire understanding of consciousness, death, and spiritual reality needs radical reconstruction. If it is metaphorical, then we're still describing genuine danger, spiritual disconnection, technological addiction, loss of autonomy, institutional manipulation of consciousness.
A vibrant cosmic void as a transcendent emptiness of pure consciousness beyond form. Either way, the invitation is identical. Become more conscious. Question reality. Build authentic spiritual practice, not religiosity. Maintain autonomy. Resist passive acceptance of authority, like your Yahweh God. Honor the soul as your most essential territory.
The eighth sphere might be the greatest myth never told, or the most important truth hidden from mass consciousness. What matters is learning to ask better questions about reality, death, and the nature of consciousness itself, because consciousness is the frontier. It's where the real battle happens.
Metallic spheres reflected infinitely in mirrors, creating an illusion of endless dimensional repetition, a visual metaphor for infinite possibilities and the many paths to liberation from the eighth sphere system. Tonight, everyone listening becomes a seeker. You're equipped with knowledge most are never allowed to encounter. The eighth sphere narrative gives you a framework for interrogating your own consciousness, your own beliefs, and your own potential for spiritual autonomy.
The question isn't whether the eighth sphere exists. The question is, will you remain aware enough, awake enough, and autonomous enough to navigate whatever reality actually is? Will you refuse to be recycled? Will you stay conscious? Will you escape the unseen prison of unconsciousness?
That is a very important question. And I would strongly believe that a majority of people that have been programmed, no matter what religion, whether you're Catholic, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, whatever religion you've been taught to believe in, that all those religious belief systems have all been created to keep you trapped in the soul trap, to keep you being recycled, to going into this eighth dimension. There is, in my opinion, no such thing as heaven or hell. Those are constructs that were created by religion. And it's worked. People fear it. You know, most people that fall for the Christian belief, they're doing it not because they love God, because they fear this Yahweh God that we
hell
talked
was
about.
never even, the doctrine of hell was never even anything that the Hebrew people of the Old Testament biblical time that they were even aware of. There was a place of holding called Sheol, but it wasn't hell. It was a place in the underworld where people were in a waiting kind of experience. And there wasn't this like eternal punishment.
The Bible never speaks of that eternal punishment.
Jesus speaks about Gehenna, but when I was in Israel, I was told that literally Gehenna was a place outside of the city gates where trash was burned. That was what hell was. And these interpretations of the early church fathers, and then later modern, that in turn that actually created all these different doctrines that weren't even anything that the Hebrew scriptures that the people read through scrolls and stuff, that wasn't even there.
The translations have been all corrupt and altered and changed to fit the political narrative, to keep people subservient, to keep people in fear, to keep people from questioning. Because when people are awakened, just as when Adam and Eve ate from the forbidden fruit, man has become like one of us. If they end up reaching for the tree of life, God knows what they're capable of.
See, right now, what we're talking about is literally presenting you with another tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Because once we present you with this concept of escaping the eighth sphere, that's like offering you forbidden fruit that the controllers don't want you to take a bite out of. They don't want you to know about this information.
It's bad for business. That's why
it doesn't allow them to keep the system rolling. I mean, they eat you and then they spit you back out to reproduce for them again.
See, we are food. Our energy source, our fear, our anger, our frustration, all of our emotions are food for these archons. And they need this food to perpetuate their system. Without us, they don't have a food supply. So they have to create all these fear factors and all these lies and all this illusion. Give your soul to Jesus, all this stuff, all the different religion. All same thing, created to continue the cycle.
And I gotta hand it to them. It's an ingenious process.
My goodness.
I mean, to build in a narrative as they've carefully constructed the one that Christianity holds on to, people are taught to believe, and then in India, people are taught to believe certain things as well. They grow up understanding certain concepts of life. They believe in the karmatic wheel, that we're placed here in order to become better souls and that we get a chance to come back, in a better light. And that's
setting up
all
the stage.
part of the karmic,
Valley 45 said something. You see it?
In Aramaic, hell was Hallel, an actual dump of refuse on the other side of the wall, continuous burning.
Yep.
It was literally a literal thing. It was actually a place where trash was burned.
Exactly.
It wasn't a place, it just doesn't make any logical sense whatsoever that people that live a life of a limited amount of time on this planet, whatever this is, that they actually have to pay an eternity worth of debt for simply refusing to believe in a certain deity.
Look, this deity,
not just once, but forever, to be recycled and to be eternally suffering for infinite amounts of non-time.
We have had shows proving that this demiurge that people like to call God is a narcissistic, horrific deity that will snap at like this over any little thing. He will send poisonous snakes to hurt people. He'll make you carnivorous and have you eat your own children. I mean, we had a show that showed all this stuff, that even the Jesus that came down came to warn people about this God of the Bible.
John 8:44 again. He says, your father is the devil. He was talking to the Pharisaical clergy people,
Of the
the
time,
Sadducees, the Pharisees, all the scribes. He was telling them, you know your law, you know the giver of that law. That giver of that law was not the creator source.
And
that was a false god.
And then was given clues. What father would deny their children food, bread, when they asked for it, and instead give them a stone or give them a snake? Well, Yahweh did that to his people, the ones that he pulled out of
So Jesus
Egypt.
is literally contrasting events that took place in ancient Israel, in the Hebrew people, when they were on their journey with Moses and their Yahweh that they had to obey, because he had pulled them out of I guess a great life. I mean, they lived.
Yeah.
They were slaves, but they were eating good food. They were living, really nice lives.
Better life.
I
Yeah.
mean, I remember reading the story. It said that they donated all their gold and all their jewelry, the Egyptians to them. So it was like,
And what God would ask for 35 women to be given to him to do what? To do what?
Young women.
Young women at that.
Girls.
And material goods. He would have the soldiers go in, take everything, kill everything, just bring the women and take the spoils, and I'll take some.
Keep the women for yourself.
Yeah,
The
just give
ones
me
that-
35 of them, and
The
then
ones that have been with a man, put them to death. I mean,
this
striking
is the
your
God.
children's, infants' heads on a rock and laughing about it.
I mean, come on now. I mean, what kind of psychopath do you all follow?
I am so glad that my consciousness awoke to the radical indoctrination
And that's
that I
what it
was
is.
raised to believe. This is actually child abuse.
Totally.
To subject a child
To that fear.
to that kind of fear, to that kind of trauma, that it takes an adult a lifetime to dissolve it, to deconstruct from that, to pull yourself out and to let those tentacles of fear and shame and like not good enough and sin and dirty and
It's a horrible, horrible system. The religions are horrible. They hurt people. And then they're hypocritical. How many of these so-called pastors are being caught doing horrible things and being convicted and thrown into jail because of the horrible things that they're doing?
And not only that, but the ones that are caught, they literally get sent to another church when they break the rules of that church, and they like brush it under the carpet like nothing happened. They like make it so that it's like, oh, well, we're not going to talk about that, and there's so much dishonesty in the body of Christ. These people that, there's, these, I remember I was working in the Christian music industry, and I would see the hypocrisy in my face all the time. And I knew that people were BSing their way just to be able to make money in the Christian industry. And they were like promoting Christian belief, and they were on tour, and they were, it was like so hypocritical. They were doing things backstage that you would never have thought that they would be engaged in.
And the thing is, it's 2025. There's a lot of information out on the internet. It's almost like we're being faced with another Tower of Babel. We're knowing too much. And when we start knowing too much and start questioning the system, there might be another reset on the way. And that's what a lot of these Christians are ignorant about. They don't realize that this is not the first go around of these Anunnakis, of these Archons, of these Elohims. They've done this time and time again. Recycle, dumb us down some more so that we continue to be their food supply, their loosh.
See, Christianity, there was a guy who was talking about the whole Epstein thing yesterday, and he was like, it's like they get a certain understanding of how the system works, and then they think that the system that they're a part of is the one that is the good one. But that's how evil functions.
Exactly.
It's the inverse of what you think. So if you think that this is the righteous path, then that's the opposite. You know, it's like, it's a perfect psyop that they play.
And that was, I think I read this incorrect, but she had written something about your sources in the video I watched, Yahweh Lies, completely unreliable. Everything that we took from that show came from your own Bible.
We read scripture.
What are you talking about?
I don't even understand how you could say that.
It's all from your Bible. Every single quote and things that we talked about came from your Bible.
That just shows me that you didn't really watch.
Or read your Bible.
I mean, if you would have watched it, you would have known that we read scripture.
Yeah.
So either you're lying for attention here on our podcast and trying to discredit us without any proof, or you just didn't watch.
That's what she does. She's always done that for the longest time that I've known her. You know, and it's a sad thing because a lot of these younger ex-gays, ex-trans, they're so brainwashed and they're so damaged by the religion. But it's like Stockholm Syndrome. They don't have a clue that that's what they're experiencing.
Yeah.
You know, they'll defend this God and their religion without even having any knowledge of their own Bible.
And then they talk about their personal relationship with immaterial what?
Yeah.
It's like, is Jesus literally standing next to you and hugging you or something?
Let me tell you, never once have I felt the Spirit of God, the Holy Spirit, the Jesus Spirit, none of that. And I completely gave myself to that religion completely. I mean, I was ate, slept, drank, everything was Christianity, woke up with my Bible, went to sleep with my Bible, read and read. And the more I read, the more I was like, something's really wrong here. This stuff just doesn't jive. This stuff makes absolutely no sense. It contradicts itself. There's no presence of any Holy Spirit. There is no presence of nothing. I even had this one particular guy with his wife pray over me to have my hair grow back and had the beard go away. And I'm thinking to myself, these people are crazy.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's just like, I'm sorry, but BS all the way.
Well, it's not just us, though. There are people that listen to this podcast that have shared that they were a Christian evangelical person, messianic Christian
for 20 years.
For 20 years.
Yeah.
Doing all the things that, they thought was the right thing to do and operating in this, righteous manner of and did they ever hear from God? Did they ever hear a voice?
The more they prayed, it's like they got the opposite. And things that they witnessed about trafficking of human bodies and things and it was all correlated with the faith. It was all, you want to know who's the biggest? Just go into the religion sector and you'll see the biggest abuse, the biggest trafficking. And this person has receipts. I'm hoping to get them on the show so they could share their deconstruction story. Many people are deconstructing this day and age. There's so many people that are realizing that it's all a lie.
And the thing is, there's a technique, there's a formula for getting people emotionally drawn to feel a certain thing. Like, I remember growing up in the church and being told, I can feel the Spirit coming into the sanctuary. Saints, this is God, He's moving. And if someone has a word, please speak, and then it was always the typical person who always somehow always spoke in tongues,
always,
right?
Yeah.
And then there was always someone who was the predictable person that interpreted the tongues. And it was they were given this holy moment and God was moving and stirring. And you could see how, they choose to use in these mega churches, at first I thought it was so impressive that they could cultivate an environment with lighting and with
all a
with
show.
smoke and mirrors, literally. I mean, and they were like, they would bring the music, the level down in the sanctuary, because before, when we used to go to church, the windows were open. It was like bright. It was like, Sunday service, there wasn't a dark.
No, just a little piano.
Yeah, it was a piano. And then you had like these big stained glass windows, and, modern churches now, they're like coffins, they're like, they're actually theaters.
Yeah.
They're acting, they're performing, and they're like doing these gymnastics that are well known in psychological circles as getting some kind of response.
And they know exactly what to do, because they've literally studied human psychology. And that's what these organizations have done throughout the years, is knowing how to trap the souls. And Valley 45 says, Lynna, sounds like my church. And she's laughing.
Yeah, I mean, they had these spiritual encounters, with the living God. It's really sad.
And let's not forget passing the little collector money thing,
Oh, yeah. But that was always at the right time, after the special music was over, and they did a prayer, and then they're like passing the bucket around, and it's such a
racket.
Yeah, it's just such a racket,
It's like I remember
the whole thing is a racket.
The last time we tried giving the Christianity a chance, we were looking for the right church, and we went to several, and it was just it was always the same scenario. They were promoting all this monetary thing. They just, like, there was no spirit in any of those churches.
There was no soul.
None.
It
None
was
whatsoever.
Like these churches that decide that they're going to get so big that they're going to do video streaming at all these different campuses around the metro area. They have no soul. It's like you go into these services and it's like they have a little worship band that plays. They do their little thing, and then they go, okay, now let's join our pastor as he does this pre-recorded message, and let's listen to him as if he's live. And it's like, the pastor's talking about material wealth. I mean, I remember this other church that we were going to for a long time. It's called Generation Church, I think it was. The pastor was talking about his 401k and how he was able to invest early on, and his family is set for, his kids are set for, whatever. And it's like, what are we talking about? And then he talks about, the political situation, and he's an avid MAGA supporter and stuff. And, the church turns into a MAGA rally and it loses. It's like they lost their soul.
Christianity has zero spirituality.
Well, they sold out to this government, and especially in this country. They defend it like as if, people are literally saying, it's the end times, and God's using Mr. Trump, and he's going to expose the evils. It's like
he is the evil.
He is the evil.
It's like the God of the Bible is the adversary.
He literally is in the Epstein files more than Epstein. Seems like, other than Epstein.
Yeah.
And it's like these people, they put all their stock in this man.
A man that is horrible. He calls women piggies. He's like, he has no respect for women. He has no respect for anybody. It's all about him. And look at what I've done.
He called for the execution of sitting congressmen and women. This is absolute
craziness.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy.
I just don't understand how this day.
More, I think.
No. Oh, yeah. Imagine thinking, let's see here. Imagine thinking, let's see, you're 10% when you couldn't pay your bills. Boy, do I have a story I'll share later.
Please do.
Please do. Go ahead.
The churches have to follow protocol or lose their tax exemption.
Exactly. And the government controls them. That's the thing. And like we've talked,
government has controlled the
over-
church
Yeah.
for thousands of years now.
yeah. And that's why they won't allow any other thing to come out. Everything, I mean, it's like when people finally learn the truth, they know they're not going to be able to keep a hold on us. They're not going to be able to control us. And that scares them.
I mean,
know?
when you say, I'm not going to stop seeking, I'm not going to stop questioning, I'm not going to close off my consciousness, I'm not going to become some ward of the state or ward of this God,
Yeah.
who has like this crazy thing that he just wants to be worshipped, adored, and for people to bow prostrate to him and stuff. And it's like, no, you're not a God. You're a false demiurge. You're a demiurge. You're a false God that is masquerading as the creator of all. And you don't deserve 1 cent of my attention.
What's the whole purpose on just worshiping something? What does that solve? People's spirit don't grow, their consciousness doesn't evolve. It's just this system, including the man that sits in the White House, just wants you to completely worship them. And that doesn't solve anything. When you're not tapping into your own spirit and growing and remembering who you are, you're devoiding, you're going backwards, you're hurting yourself, and you're hurting everyone because we're all connected. We need to literally all wake up together. We need to stop giving our powers away. We need to stop believing in these stupid religiosities. It's time to wake up.
In another show that we're going to be doing in the next few weeks, we're going to talk about something that is going to be kind of shocking to understand, that there's a large percentage of us on this planet who are not actually human.
Yep.
We're actually something else.
Yep.
And there's an agenda to replace humanity that has been in force for a long time, resetting us,
Yeah.
getting us to be programmed, and then eventually trying to rid us off the planet.
Yeah, because we keep like remembering and connecting to who we are, and they can't have that because then we can't continue the soul farm that they have.
And it'll be controversial. There's going to be people that aren't going to agree. And I don't agree with everything that's being shared, but I do agree with letting this information out and letting people decide for themselves
That's important.
what to believe.
That's important because when you have a one-track mind, like,
Mariah, really, we literally read your Bible. It's laughable that you would say that we don't have credible sources. Wait, I guess the Bible isn't a credible source then. I guess that's what you're saying.
and that there's so much evidence for the Bible. Well, that's what we used throughout the shows, not this one, but the one that you watch.
There is evidence for the Bible, that's for sure. There's evidence that it's been
And that's
manipulated.
with such certainty. There is no such thing as the eighth sphere, but there is heaven and hell. What proof do you have of that? Actually, your own Bible denies that whole hell thing. It's not even real. That was just a concept that was created.
That was an elaboration and just a big, like taking something that was meant for something else and repurposing it and making a bigger thing out of it than it was.
Yeah, but hopefully she'll wake up one day soon and stop wasting her time and energy on something that is
Well,
not
everybody
worth it.
has their own journey, and some
Yeah.
people, they won't really want to wake up. So,
I guess
and that's what we're talking about
Yeah,
with regards to some people not even being human.
yeah,
Because they're just gonna,
yeah.
they're part of a system that wants a certain agenda to be fulfilled.
Exactly.
And they talk about other people having an agenda,
Right.
but it's been an agenda of Christianity
For a long time.
to create a theocracy in this world, in this country.
Yeah. I mean, and you don't have to go far. The show we had, what's today? Thursday, that we had Tuesday, we talked about the old world. I mean, you don't have to go very far to understand that something's not right. Those buildings that are standing that they've tried to destroy was not created by our species. There's something else going on there. And that in and of itself could tell you that something is fishy.
Yeah.
But, you want to continue to be trapped, and not have a consciousness because, like you said, a lot of these people don't have a consciousness. They're soulless. But
I mean, our government's being run by a soulless man right now.
yeah, totally.
And a soulless cabinet.
Yeah.
People that wouldn't know empathy if it bit them in the butt.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's pretty sad.
people that have no heart, have
Zero.
no consciousness.
I mean, and they look reptilian. Was that Pam, whatever her name
Bondi.
is? Bondi. You look at her, and it's like that movie They Live where you wear those glasses and you see the face of the reptiles. It's like when I look at her and I look at certain one of those people that work for Trump, reptiles,
Yeah.
total reptilians. But it is all going to come out, and the truth will be revealed, and it won't be deniable. We're living in really exciting times. We really are.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little stressful because you wake up in the morning and there's always something
yeah.
that they're doing to distract people, to get people up.
Closing the Department of Education, removing certain professions from professional blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's just like every day he wakes up and it's like, what am I going to mess with humanity today? That kind of thing. But anyway, we want to thank all of you guys for watching. Keep seeking, keep questioning, keep remembering. The greatest escape is consciousness itself.
And you really do need to do your best to stay awake.
Yeah. All right, travelers, have a good night. We love you guys.
But remember to always love yourselves too.
And each other. And where's that rock song here? We'll get this right. Take care, guys. Be well and stay awake.